Welcome back to another video, and today I'll be showing my recommendations for spring eyeshadow palettes. Welcome back, and it's time to do an updated version of my spring eyeshadow palette favorites or recommendations. So in these kind of videos I like to showcase my sort of favorite palettes. With some of these palettes I do already have also like swatches for them, or actually like most of them. There might be a few that there isn't, so you are gonna see hand swatches in somewhere in this corner as I go through the palettes. And these are not in any kind of like favorites order, but these are generally like favorites from my own collection according to this particular theme that is spring. And how I usually go with this is that I usually show the drugstore favorites, then the high-end ones, and last the indie. With this one we are not having drugstore ones, but there's one K-beauty palette which I'm gonna put as in the like drugstore category because it's a bit more inexpensive. Then I'm gonna show the high-end ones, and lastly I'm gonna show the indie ones, which I do think the indie ones again seem to make the biggest pile, but that's quite understandable because indie, especially what indie brands do excellent, are like colorful pastel toned eyeshadows, and that is like I think what I associate with spring and a lot of people associate with spring. But you can obviously wear these around the year, so if you're just looking for some like recommendations of these more like generally like maybe more pastel like palettes, or maybe like generally a bit more like what I would say maybe more lighter palettes, then this could also be a good recommendations video to look. But I'm gonna start now going through my favorites. Okay, so the first one, and this was the sort of K-beauty one. So this is from Romand, and this is one of the better written palettes. This is the 07 Berry Fuchsia Garden. So I think I'm gonna show this close by because it is a smaller palette. And why I associate this with spring, I think, is obviously because it has this sort of lilac and pink tones. This is a bit more on the muted side, and I do think this is especially a good like recommendation for springtime if you're especially like that you want some pinks and lilacs as a spring color, but you don't want these necessarily very punchy pigmented shades. Then I think this is a good formula because it is more on the buildable side. But what I do also appreciate with this one is that even though you get these very dainty pink and lilac tones, there is actually enough depth in this one, so you are able to get cohesive looks with this one, because there are, especially in the terms of pastel palettes, a lot of them that you have like good pastel shades, but at least I'm a person who usually needs also like some deepening up shades to make cohesive look. So I do think this kind of fills in the gap of being a very good like small palette for, especially if you're looking for a bit of pink and lilac, but you're able to do full on look with this one. Only thing that I'm not such a big fan of it, this one, so these has this sort of adhesive glitter shade, which a lot of like K-beauty and Asian beauty brand palettes have, so I could live without this one. But I still, if you do use this one, you don't need any glitter glue because adhesive is in this shade already, so you can just put this on your lid. But in terms of removing this particular shade, use a oil-based cleanser, like cleaner, before you go to shower or anything, because otherwise this is going to be very messy to take off. But still, a recommendation if you're especially looking for a spring type of palette from Romand, especially from this range. Then let's go to the high-end one. So first one is more of a topo or complementary palette, but I do actually think this fits to the theme quite well. So this is from LH Cosmetics. So this is the Aurora Quad, and this is basically a small quad of duochrome shades. Why I do think I wanted to put this in the spring video is obviously that these are all very this sort of like light and very like almost iridescent like topo sparkly shades, and I do think these would be a very good complementary like shimmers to any kind of, especially like a pastel toned matte palette if you have those in your collection. This is also the kind of like shimmer formula that if you haven't been liking indie eyeshadow palettes for these very like chunky and like chunkier shimmer formulas, this is a very smooth and shimmer formula that I do think most eyelids could like get away with. So these don't emphasize textures, and they don't do like, these don't crease on your eyelids. These actually last through the whole day. These are of course a bit expensive considering that you're only getting 4 shades, and full price these are like over 40 euros. But LH Cosmetics is a lot of times on sale, at least on the places that I buy the brand from. So I would just wait for the retailer to have a sale and then get this one if you are able to find, if you are like in this particular quad. And I do think that even though it's a bit more expensive, but I do think this, for some people, this could be a bit more accessible also if you especially have this brand sold in a brick and mortar retailer. But for me, while this is in the spring ranking, is purely because of the tones, and also I do think these and how these tones match like sort of like other spring palettes that I do have in my collection. Then something from what is a cohesive palette. So this is Dior's £9. This is the, what was this one called? Celestial Purple. So this was Dior's backstage release a couple of holidays ago. And I think I did already say this in my first review when I reviewed this, that for me this actually is more of a spring-esque palette rather than maybe a winter palette. I actually had this recently in my rotation. You are gonna see this featured again when I'm gonna be doing another Shop My Stash videos where I kind of went through some of the older eyeshadow palettes that I've been testing again. And I do have to say the quality, even though this is a couple of years older, this is still very, very good to go. I enjoyed using this one. You aren't gonna get any like super sparkly shimmers with this one, but why I do think this backstage formula is pretty good and a lot of people will enjoy it is that it is very flattering, different kind of eyelids, so nothing is chunky here, everything is very smooth. And I do think because these are more satiny shades, they are also very easy to work and blend in together. So I think even a person who would be a bit more afraid to use more colorful shades would actually again enjoy this one because it's just a very easy formula to work with. And you do get some variation with this one. You can get a neutral look, you can get a more purple look, and you can get this sort of like periwinkle blue look out of this one. So there is some variation in this one, even if it's only a 9 pan. Then a more neutral palette, I'm gonna open this one already because it's a very reflective. So this is something that you see quite regularly on my rankings. So this is from Byredo and this is the Remembrance palette, and I'm very sorry for all the people who missed this one because these big palettes from Byredo, these are limited edition palettes. Once these are gone, they are surely gone. You can't buy them anymore. This is something that I always categorize as being half fall and a half spring palette. So for me, obviously, like this lighter half over here in this side is the spring side, and then this sort of like side over here is the more fall side. But obviously when I use this, I do combine the two sides. But I think this is a good, the sort of like spring, if your ideal spring is like something more neutral, but more like lighter, more maybe like peachy leaning, then I do think something like this is very nice for the springtime. And again, this formula, you're not gonna get anything like super sparkly or anything, but this is a very effortless formula to work with, and it's most likely will flatter different kind of eyelids, so nothing's gonna crease on you, nothing's gonna look unflattering, and it's just very like pleasant, and I would say one way in a very intuitive palette to work with, even if it does have a lot of shades. And this also, you do kind of get something fun. You kind of have a bit of silvers in this one to sort of like give it a bit of a twist from not being just purely a very like peachy leaning neutral palette. Then a Pat McGrath palette, and this was the Ethiopian Dream. So I usually I think have featured this in my like spring rankings or favorites. So I have my mothership still in the old formula. Unfortunately, I think if you do still buy this one, you aren't gonna get the bake shades anymore because those were because those are no longer existing in Pat McGrath's like her own makeup brand. Why I usually put Ethiopian Dream in my spring favorites is because what makes me this for me a spring palette are these two special shades over here. And then you have this very punchy peach shade over here, and this is kind of, otherwise this is a very typical mothership in the fact that we have a lot of gold and pink in this one, which is something that I think one reason why Pat McGrath, unfortunately her brand did kind of fell off for a lot of people is that we started seeing a lot of similar things. But I do think the particular shades in this one make this bit different from the other two motherships that I do own, because I do, like I have the Divine Rose and Rose 1 and 2, which are basically the like, basically what kind of made Pat McGrath very popular at once, but also were downfall because after those palettes we just started seeing like pinks and golds repeating. So this one, while it's no way, aside from the few shades, very unique in terms of the motherships that we saw, but this has a few shades that are unique enough for making it a bit different and for me making it a spring palette. So I can't say a lot about the new formula that is now if you buy these palettes currently, so I can't say that how it compares to these old ones, but for me these old formulas, the matte formula and these ones was never my favorite, but I do think the shimmers are what still makes this very special. So if you do happen to have this one, maybe springtime would be a good time to dig it out and see what kind of looks you can create with it. And then to the big pile of indie palettes, I have 3 Owen and Sai palettes in this category, so sorry about that already beforehand, but let's go with the obvious. So the first palette that I'm actually currently wearing today is this one. So this is the Sickly Sweet from Lempani. This is my, I think, like ultimate spring pastel palette. You can get this palette, they borrowed this back and it's now magnetized. I have the older version, but unfortunately if you do get it now, they don't have the neon pastels anymore. Unfortunately the owner, they had to sort of like momentarily they stopped manufacturing this one because getting the sort of like neon pastel pigments, it was getting very difficult and they were getting pretty expensive. But she was able to bring the palette back, but as I said, if you now buy this one, you are missing few of the neon pastel shades, which is very unfortunate because at least for me, those are also the kind of shades that do make this very special. Something else that makes this very special is that this is a pastel palette that I can use as a cohesive palette because this has deepening up shades with the mattes. I think if we would not have the deeper matte shades in this one, I don't think I would necessarily like this as much as I do, but because it has the deeper mattes, I don't have to go to other palettes in order to like get cohesive looks with this one. The only like maybe downside of this one is that it has the older Blend Bunny shimmer formula. They have definitely improved their shimmer formula with their newer palettes, but even if it does have the older shimmer formula, it is still very pretty and easy to work with. It's a bit on the drier side, so it's actually a pretty good shimmer formula for the fact that it doesn't crease, at least on my eyelids, that these emollient shimmers tend to crease with. And I just think that the versatility in this one, it's just like one of the best colorful palettes in my collection, and I think in terms of versatility, something that not a lot of colorful palettes can do. So obviously you get a lot of shades, but at least with this one I do feel having a lot of shades because we get different enough shades from each other. So there is like it kind of warrants of this being a very big palette. So. But as I said, you can get this one, but if you do get it, it's not exactly the same one that I have. But if you did manage to get the older one, I would definitely use it during springtime and also other times around the year because it's a still very nice palette to go. And then let's go to the Oden's Eye ones. So first one is an oldie but a goodie. So this is the Hella palette. So this is the Angelica Nyqvist and Oden's Eye collaboration. Angie obviously these days, she has her own brand. We're gonna see that soon. But this was the I think this was the second collab she got because she did get another collab before this one. But I do think this was much more popular one. What makes this a spring palette for me, you get these greens and then you get some pinks, you even get some darkness in this one because obviously Hela, I think the goddess, it's a Norse mythology goddess and I think she was the goddess of life and death, so you do get kind of the dead side of this one also in this particular palette. I like to dig this out during springtime, just like with the Dior palette that I showed before. This is also has been on my rotation recently, so you are gonna get sort of a review of this one in my channel once I get to filming that particular video. But this is still a good palette to go. I can now actually say it because I recently did this has been now in my rotation, and I'm a bit unsure. I think they did bring this actually, which was a bit interesting considering that as I said, Angie now has her own makeup brand, Cinch Beauty, but they actually did do a short rerun of this one, so I'm a bit unsure that is this still in stock, but it was momentarily back in stock on Oden's Eye website, I think during last year. But if you have this one and you especially like your greens and pinks during springtime, I do think this is a very good palette still to use. Then a newer palette, and I do think this is available. This is actually, so this is the Autumn Alva palette. This is one of the 4 seasonal palettes they brought out during the last years. I think it was during fall time. And I did discuss this already in my fall favorites ranking fall favorites, not ranking, but recommendation video, that for me it's kind of half and half palette. So for me it's kind of fall palette, but it's also spring palettes because you do actually get you have these yellows in this one. There's also a peach in the middle, and also with the greens you do get some lighter greens. So I think for me this is one of those 50-50 palettes you can use for if you are a person who's into seasonal makeup. You can get very fall-esque looks with this one, but there's also quite a lot of these very bright spring-esque shades, so it kind of goes both ways. I do think in terms of color this is because it's this very pale green, it screams more spring to me than fall in terms of the cover, but as I said, it is still called Autumn Alva because this was the autumn variation. I think the spring variation was the spring variation was the pink one. I didn't get that one because actually the next palette I'm showing, I kind of thought that I already have something similar. So this again definitely wasn't meant to be a spring release from them. This was their holiday release 2 seasons ago, so this is the Rosy Jingles palette. I do think I might have already featured this in my, was this in my Valentine's video? I think it was in my Valentine's favorite, but Obviously, because this is a very pastel leading palette, I am also going to include it in the spring sort of favorites. The downside of this palette is that you are truly limited with depth, so that is a bit unfortunate. And like with the Autumn Alva and with the Hella palettes, there was a gradient from light to deeper shades. With this one, unfortunately, the only deeper shade is this kind of cream to powder shade, and I detest this formula. I really hope we would get rid of this one. It's a very difficult formula to work with from Odin's side. You do get this brown over here, but you do have to build this quite a bit, and it doesn't still offer the kind of depth that I would like. So if you are into this sort of like if you are into these like very just like pastel like looks without like using deepening up shades, then this could be a good palette. But I think with this one I always kind of feel like that I need some other palette to get some deeper. It looks like something deeper because I'm quite a fair, my skin tone is very fair, and then you would think that pastel shades would show up on me quite well, but actually what kind of happens is that a lot of pastel shades, they seem to like just sink into my skin, so I do have to actually also layer pastels quite a lot to get them to show up. I do have to say a credit from Odin's eye is that the shades do actually, because we had it was the holiday palettes before this one that were absolutely horrible, at least the ones that I got, where I had to build the shades, and with those two palettes there was, I think in both of the palettes they did kind of have the pastel shades, and I couldn't get them to show up even though I built them. But with this one I do have to give them credit, the pastel shades do show up, so you don't have to build them horrendously. But as I said, this is maybe like if you don't need any kind of depth in your eyeshadow look, you just like to dabble in pastels, then you're especially gonna enjoy this one. For a user like me, I do enjoy this one, but I just need also like to do some extra steps to make it like perfect for me. The shimmers in this one are very pretty, I will give it credit. Then something from Cosmic Beauty, so this is the Delicious Delights. I think this might still be available on their website, even though it's beginning to be the older palette. So this again has some pastel, but these pastels are what I would say, a lot of them are a bit more mid-tone pastel. So I do think especially for more of if you have something to medium, even to a deeper skin tone, I do think for some people this might be a better option than some of the other palettes I just showed, because these are more mid-tone pastels, meaning that you don't have to build them as much to get them to show up. Again, what I do give credit for this one is that you can use this as a cohesive palette, so we also do get some deepening up shades, and I do like the gradient of shades that this has. The only maybe minus side of this one is that this didn't have as much shimmers. This was still made in the time when Cosmic Beauty, they didn't have the 50-50 ratio. These days they mostly do a 50-50 ratio with their shimmers, which is very good. I think a lot of people were hoping for that. And also the shimmer formula in this one is a bit of an older shimmer formula, so it's not maybe as sparkly as some of the newer shimmer formulas that are in their sort of newer palettes. But I do think if you're still looking for an all colorful palette that has especially more like mid-tone pastels, and you're looking from a indie brand that is pretty decently priced, then I would still say this is a very good option to look into. And then I think this is this the newest? I think this is the newest palette in the collection. So I just reviewed this recently on my channel. So this is the Succulent 2, and this is from Cinch Beauty. So this is Angelica Newquist's brand. And this was the first Cinch Beauty palette that I tried, and boy was I impressed. I was like very knowing that Angie has made her career in YouTube, especially like focusing on colorful makeup looks and reviewing colorful eyeshadow palettes, like I should have expected good things, but it's always when you try a new brand, you just never know that will you end of the day like it, but I did like this a lot. And this one is one of those palettes that you do get pastels, but you actually do get like also mid-tone and deeper shades. So I think this is, in terms of versatility, again a pretty good colorful palette. And with this one you actually get some berries, and then you get a sort of lilacs and blues and greens. So I think especially if you are more into your like a cool tone blue, green, purple kind of colors, then this could be a good spring palette. You do get like as I said, there's also a bit berries in this one, but it's majority a blue, purple, and also the greens, at least on my particular skin tone, those also tend to be quite blue. So you have to like your blue tone colors in order to enjoy this one. But if that is the kind of idea of spring colors to you, then I would recommend this one. The shimmers are very beautiful. The shimmers are not, again, this sort of very super emollient formula, but a very beautiful, sparkly, bit more a drier formula in a good kind of way that it doesn't crease, especially if you have eyelids that tend to do, at least my eyelids tend to do that with a lot of like emollient shimmers, that they tend to crease. So I do think the shimmer formula in this one I think a lot of people would enjoy it. And also because this, I think there's 2 duochromes or multichromes in this one. So because a lot of the shimmers, they are very sparkly, but this isn't like packed full of special shades. The cinch is very decently priced. These go around, at least on Monolith shop, I think these are around 50 euros. So considering that there are like indie brands that charge somewhere to 70 to 80 euros, this is like very decent compared to that one. So I would give Cinch Beauty a try, and if you are looking for a good like spring palette, maybe this one could be something to try out from them, because at least I was very impressed with the quality of this one. Those were my favorites for spring eyeshadow palettes. Comment down below maybe what have been your favorite spring eyeshadow palettes that you've been using lately. If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog, on Instagram. I hope I can see you in the video. Bye bye!